An argument is composed of claims and evidence. A claim is when you say something. It's kind of going out on a limb. It's when you say something you believe to be true that's in response to a question. The real trick to this claim making is, can you back it up? You back up a claim with evidence. Where does the evidence come from? It comes from the source. The source provides the information that is then repurposed as evidence to support claims, and the claims make up the argument, which is the response to the compelling question.
I think the beauty of it is that every student's claim and argument is going to be different. They're discovering the information and the sources in a unique way, and they're bringing to play their own unique life experience. So their answers are going to be different, and I think that that really gives richness to their summative assessment.
So the project does a really great job of scaffolding, supporting questions to get to the compelling question, like what is agriculture? What were some advancements that came from agriculture, and then what were unintended consequences of the development of agriculture? So you had students understanding that from the evidence from primary sources that, for example, if you look at Sumerian cuneiform, there was evidence that early peoples kept track of surplus and scarcity in a written form. And with regard to unintended consequences, students are like, oh my gosh, you mean eating wheat bread has more calories maybe than eating a Twinkie? And they're like, no, I'm safe, I don't think so. So it really engendered discussion and provided a springboard for the students' critical thinking.
In the IDM model, what we want to do is to provide students with an opportunity to engage sources. And sources become the place where students get information. What we're trying to do is to provide students with an opportunity to work with disciplinary sources. And when we say disciplinary sources, we mean the sources that come from our academic field. So in history, a source might be a diary entry. It might be a record from a county courthouse. It could be a letter that somebody's written. In geography, it's going to be spatial information. It could be maps. It could be descriptions of places. In the Toolkit project, we have two things that we're doing with sources. Teachers use sources in the design of inquiry, and students engage sources when they're learning about content during an inquiry. When students engage sources, they're using the sources to get information, the information that they need to know more about the content so they can respond to the compelling question.
You really want students to investigate and critically analyze sources on their own. They have to have documentation. They have to look at different kinds of sources. They have to investigate the validity of sources. We're working continuously in the inquiries to help students sharpen their arguments, to help them sharpen their writing skills. And you can't do that without the primary sources.
One of the great things about these sources is the different kinds of sources that we have within these inquiries. There's pictures, there's political cartoons, there's text, and all these different things that the students can really analyze and really get into. And if maybe they're not great with one type of source, they can get other information from another kind of source. And they really are improving their skills of not just literacy in the text sense, but also the literacy that they're getting with other types of political cartoons, other types of sources as well.
You guys are going to talk about, can words lead to war? What's your opinion? To be able to take primary sources of the 1860s and then allow the kids to connect or interact with it, it takes planning and also takes forethought. So one major part was a compelling question. Can words lead to war? When we think about words, they understood that words can be powerful. Let me see, Isabel.
Okay, so Mahin said that words can lead to war because when you talk about another country's culture, and they might take it very offensive.
And they were able to then connect that to words they've heard in their past. Martin Luther King and also Hitler, how those words were powerful and it led to maybe a positive change in the society, or it could have led to a negative change. So by setting the foundation, now the students were able to take a book from the 1860s and say, what impact do those words have in that time period? And then on a larger scale, what impact can my words have in the society that I'm living in?
The 84 inquiries that are a part of the New York Toolkit all include sources, anywhere from 4 to 7, 8, maybe even 9 sources or more for each inquiry. What we do when we're working with sources is we adapt, We excerpt and we modify. And we've applied those three types of actions to sources for a lot of the sources that are in the Toolkit project.
One thing that the framework did with the use of the sources was to use excerpts. Let's get some main ideas from what you read. So passage 1, what was a main idea that you got from that? Christian?
A main idea that I got was that when George talks to Eliza about his life, he's wishing that he's never born because his life is all about misery.
Okay. Today when we did Uncle Tom's Cabin lesson, they did not provide the whole book of Uncle Tom's Cabin, but they provided pertinent excerpts to help the students get a base knowledge. So I think that's very important.
The question is, how do we know students are getting it? Well, there's one simple way of knowing, and that is that students aren't aware of when the class is going to end. They start to ask questions that you wouldn't have expected. They start to see things and understand things in ways that you couldn't have predicted. And that's when you know that students are getting it.
One lesson when we rewrote the Declaration of Independence, you were able to better comprehend it because you were able to see it through your own, your own view. So it's like you get to see how, and you understood it much better than how they wrote it previously. So it was your own way of viewing what they wrote.